We're on.
Layer on my head, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have to have a special filter for that.
Yeah.
Anti-glare filter.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order with the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have to start with a public hearing on an application for renewal of Bentley Saloon Special Amusement Permit located at 1601 Portland Road. Any comments? Anything for the public hearing? Okay, then I declare the public hearing closed. Regular meeting, agenda. Approval of the agenda.
So move.
Okay, second.
I'll second.
All in favor? Got the agenda. Public forum. With public forum, anyone wishing to comment on any item not on the agenda may do so now.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Recently, because it's public information, the selectmen received an email from Mr. Darry Keller regarding our decision to pursue the zip code change, or addition, I guess I should say, to the town of Arundel. And seeing town meetings coming up, and this may be part of the discussion, so I thought it might be a good time to clarify exactly what that was. And I'm not going to discuss his misinformation or lack of preparation. I'm going to focus on what the real issue is, and that's the EDC, like Economic Development Committee, did the homework and found out, which we do as we pursue this, that because we share the post office with Kennebunkport, if those businesses or those people who have the 04046 zip code presently, they can choose to keep that zip code if it's important to their business, important to their residents. And those who will, if we are given a new zip code in Arundel, for those of us who want to have an Arundel zip code, we'll have an Arundel zip code. But I guess I was a little upset to think that we would go off and force people to change their zip code, knowing that it would hurt their businesses and hurt them personally. We took that into consideration. We made that decision to pursue it. And I have every confidence in this board that if we find out that's not the case, they will review that and remedy the situation if it is going to be harmful once we get to that final point. So just for the record, that because we may have a zip code that is an Arundel zip code unique to Arundel, because we share the post office with Kennebunkport, we have been assured that in fact those people who want to keep the 04046 zip code have the opportunity to do that. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else under public forum? Approval of the minutes of May 28th.
It looked okay to me.
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion from made to approve
Second.
and seconded. All in favor? Committee and board reports.
Tomorrow is the municipal referendum elections from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the Arundel Fire Station. All Arundel residents are welcome to attend. Registered voters can vote, and unregistered voters can register to vote. And that, once again, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the fire station at 468 Limerick Road. Open town meeting will be held on Wednesday the 12th at 7 p.m. here in the gymnasium. Same situation. Can they register to vote at town meeting?
I usually bring a few cards. They can usually register if they have the right ID.
Okay. All Arundel residents are welcome to attend, and all registered voters are welcome to participate in the show of hands votes that happen on at open town meeting. And then the facilities committee will be meeting on June 21st, not in 2030, 2013, 10:30 a.m. It's going to be a long process. 10:30 a.m. here at the ML Day School. The exact location will be in the parking lot so we can review the scenario that they're running with at this point in time, and I'll give you an update on that later in the agenda.
That answers your question, 10:30 in the morning. All right. And we are meeting out in the parking lot?
Yes, we are meeting in the parking lot, was what my understanding was after speaking with Dan, the architect.
And if you'd like to come, Phil, bring a ladder. We'll put you right up on the roof. New business. Selectmen's consideration for approval of Bentley Saloon Special Amusement Permit Renewal. And it looks as though this has been checked out by both Jim Nagel and
Bruce?
Troy.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Bruce, is there any significant changes or additions to the,
Nothing really.
it is a renewal?
Yeah, just a renewal.
Thank you.
Yeah, it looks like the same thing that you know with the rest. Yeah, I make motion to approve.
Okay, motion's been made to approve, second?
I'll second that.
All right, I do have one comment. I did get a comment from one person in town who lives probably half a mile away. Apparently one Saturday night, the wind was just right and they could very clearly hear the band.
Do you know what time it was? Because we shut the music off outside at 9. All the outdoor
This
speakers.
was, he said it was close to midnight, so
Okay.
apparently it was probably one of those warm nights and
Yeah.
all the doors and windows were open.
Exactly.
But he just mentioned it. He didn't complain. He didn't call and say, you know, I couldn't sleep, or he just said he could hear it.
Yeah, and tell them to feel free to call the saloon too,
Yeah.
because we do try to keep it down.
Any other comments? No? Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Todd, is it possible to get a copy of the approval?
I usually send you like a little certificate saying that you have a special amusement for the next.
Yeah, do you know when we can get that? Because Augusta's we got till the 29th for Augusta.
Probably Wednesday, because I
That's
have
fine, yeah.
elections tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll have it.
Thank you.
Selectmen discussion with fire chief in regards to the necessary repairs to engine 301.
Correct. Could you inform them, Todd?
Nope, I was going to leave it right up to you so I didn't get anything wrong.
All right, well, no, I got a, just so you know, 301, engine 301, it's a 1991. It's been out of service for about a week. We noticed that the pump was leaking a couple of weeks ago, substantially more than it's supposed to. We had some problems with some valves, which Deputy Tardif and Jesse Thurston was actually we bought the kits, they did a lot of the valve repairs themselves, which saved us some money. Unfortunately, we had to send the pump down to Reliant to have them check the pump, and when they got into it, it's typical of a volunteer type pump, because we draw a lot of our water off ponds, and we get a lot of sand and everything, and over the years it's worn. Where it was leaking is around the packing, it's around the shaft that turns everything. And if that packing is supposed to leak a little bit, but not like this. It's not supposed to be when you open the tank, it runs the whole tank of water out on the floor. It's supposed to be drip. When we got it down there, they pulled the shaft. They actually brought all the parts up for Raylan and I to look at last week. And because of the wear and tear over the years of grit, sand, and whatever else, the shaft is all scored. It's pitted. It's got deep rings in it. You can feel some of the gears are no longer meshing. And the pump housing itself, which is cast, is eroded away so bad that it's interfering with the operation of the pump itself. So he came down and he said, we've got some options. And I said, well, first of all, buying a new truck for $350,000 is not an option. So we need to go to another option. He said, well, I said, what about a new pump? And he said, well, they make a new pump, but they don't make this series of pump anymore because it's over 20 years old. The pump they make does not bolt directly into this. It has to be retrofitted. The pump, believe it or not, imagine this, is built in China. It's shipped to, just to ship, get it built and shipped to here to a dock. I'm not sure which dock he meant with, I'm assuming Portland, was $26,000. Not counting his retrofit time, getting it up to Vassalboro and everything else. So we're talking well over $30,000. There again, not an option for me. I thought it was too much money. So the next option was to see if we could find a housing somewhere, which the last time he looked for one, he was lucky enough to find one eventually. So they had Hale, which is the pump manufacturer, put two of their guys on. That's what they do. They check all over the world for them. Nothing available. So what we decided to do was where it's cast, they have in the past tried to weld them, but I don't know if Mr. Labby may be familiar, but you can't weld cast that well because it cracks. We ran into this when I worked in the Navy after seven or 8 years. I used to work on cast. And, I mean, you either got to drill holes at the end to keep it from cracking, you got to superheat it, and then it usually doesn't work. This stuff is also very porous because of the damage from over the years of wear and tear, rust and ever. So what they said they could do was, and this is the option I ended up going with, was that there were some other issues with pumps and valves and stuff, was to beef up the outside of the pump, use the existing casing, and try to test it. Now it's a 1250 pump. 1250 is 1,250 gallons a minute. That's what it's rated for. What we found out through the NFPA is that technically I can down-rate the pump. I thought it was once. He said it can be down-rated more than once. It wasn't a big deal of getting in a debate on who doing what. All that means is that we can get it to a point where we can pass test with it. As you know, the trucks have to be tested every year. So that was the option that I chose. I talked to Todd about it. We were probably looking at anywhere between $15,000 and $20,000 to get this done. Since that time, he tried to take pictures of it to send it down to us, but he told the deputy today that the pictures didn't come out worth a crap. So what they did do was, in this eroded area that is part of the problem with the casting, is they decided to try some epoxy. Now the epoxy is such a thing that if it overheats or whatever at the time, if it disintegrates, it won't damage the pump parts that they're going to put in because it's not like a rock or any of that stuff. So if it stays, then it's to our advantage. He's going to retest the pump. If it'll test to 1250, he's going to rate it at that. If not, he's going to call me and we're going to try to find out where we can rate it at, whether it's 1,100, 1,000, 750, whatever. But we're going to get a rating. The problem is that we had to fix it. I had, actually, he called today, he didn't give us a figure, Deputy Tyler called me back, and he's quoting me 15,000 plus or minus 2,000. It'll either be 13, it could be 17. That's what it's going to cost to fix it. It'll be done probably tomorrow. They'll test it, it'll be all tested, it'll be all certified, whatever we set it at. So after July 1st, when we do our annual pump test, I won't have to redo that. So we'll save $500, $1,000, not anywhere near the cost of the pump. The issue with the pump is that the repair cost is, we don't have that in the fire department doesn't have that in their budget. There was no way they could plan for that. This is just an extra expense. Obviously, it's a good truck. One of the things long-term that we need to consider, or the board needs to consider, is that this is probably going to just continue to be an issue down the road. So we probably should look at maybe replacing it in the next 5 years or so, somewhere in a, you know, I don't think it's not going to make 30 years or 35 years. I'm not a big supporter of 30-year fire trucks anyways, but so we just need to consider it down the road. But I think investment in it this time, for even though it's a lot of money, I think it's a good investment because the rest of the truck is sound. It's a decent truck. But there again, the reason I need to come to you people is I don't have the money in my budget to obviously offset that cost. That's not something we plan for. Not saying that at the end of the year, whenever they close the books or everything, if there is $1,500 that has that could be applied towards the cost. absolutely. I'm not familiar with how the town of Arundel operates as far as if they, keep a maintenance for major repair accounts, if they have a surplus account, or I don't know how that works. So I'm kind of looking for some guidance here, how we can do this. To me, repairing it was the cheapest way out. And I think we did that by if we have to down payment. We may not. That being said, the pump guy did say that at least now, if it starts to deteriorate a little bit, if we get it at $12.50 this year, next year, a little weak, we can downrate it. We know what the issue is. The issue is this pump is worn, it's getting tired. But he says it's pretty much the common stuff he sees at all volunteer departments, where we depend on dry hydrants. You never know what you're going to pull out of the water. You try to clear them every year with your pump test and your hydrant test. We try to flush the trucks out with the hydrants when we get on them, but you're not going to drive an extra 8 miles just to take a chance you might suck up a rock at that fire. You're going to use the hydrant. That's why we put them on.
The majority of the cost is probably from the impeller and the shaft of the pump. I mean, even if it starts to downgrade, you might still be able to re-epoxy it down the road, right? I mean, it's the housing with the impeller that is kind of all eroded and hidden in there, right?
Right. And actually the impeller is going to have to be replaced too. That's the same
So,
thing.
yeah.
And that's what he's hoping, by repairing all the what I call minor cost. Maybe these gears are maybe $1,500 rather than spend $30,000 on a pump that they got a retrofit. He's hoping that this will keep that rating up for us. But there, like I said, that is that option through the NFPA standard to downrate it, which like I said, I thought as a chief, I thought it was a one-shot deal. I could downrate it once. He's saying no. He says he's got the NFPA standard to approve that, which to me that's an advantage for us because we can keep the pump rated, even though it might not be rated at what it was originally built for. But I mean, it's 22 years old. You got to expect it to. Originally, I don't know when the chiefs back then. I know anything I bought in the '80s, I bought the 1250 even at a volunteer, not because I needed the big pump, because I knew eventually it was going to start the weekend. We have a tradition in the volunteer department, so keeping our trucks forever, and we know it's going to weaken, so we want to have a decent pump later on in the run. But there is going to be some issues down the road, and for future discussion, I think it's something we need to look at as far as replacement costs. But right now, I'm more concerned with the cost of how we're going to pay for the cost of this. I mean, I didn't go and just do this. I got all the research. I talked to Todd. I didn't just make this decision on my own. I went. Randall was there with me. These guys made many years' experience that I have. And we were just. This guy that brought the pump parts down for us was just amazing. I mean, the fact that he drove all the way down to Nebraska with the parts. He even offered to come and bring the parts tonight if I needed him. I didn't think that was quite necessary.
Okay, John?
Yep, so what I'm going to recommend we do is, this is similar to when we have a few specialty pieces of equipment at Public Works where when it comes to repairs and getting them back up and running, we can't use the RFP bid process. Reliant is a reputable vendor that we've used in the past to repair our equipment. What I intend to do is we're going to monitor the fire department budget till the very last minute. And whatever's remaining in the fire department budget that hasn't been expended will be overexpended in the maintenance and repair line. The remainder will have to come out of the capital equipment line. When we know what that invoice total is, we know that it's been fixed, and we know what's left. At the next selectmen's meeting, I will come back to you and ask for approval to take that additional sum, whatever that may be, out of the fire department capital equipment to get this piece of equipment back up and running. And I think that it's important that this piece of apparatus get up and running because it's one of the frontline vehicles, and it's it's a fairly important piece of apparatus, and we'll have to keep an eye on it, monitor what's going to happen, keep an eye on the testing. If it starts to downgrade, as Dan said, we can re-epoxy, do what we can until we get our plan together as to the replacement schedule on the vehicle at the fire department.
Okay, could you repeat the cost of the repairs? Was it 1,500 or?
No, he said 15,000 plus or minus 2,000.
Okay,
So
that's what I got.
that's just an estimate.
That's what I got, but I had heard 1,500 after that. I'm like, no.
That's just an estimate. I mean, he knows. I mean, we bought parts, we bought gears and stuff, and we'll get all the old parts when he he's gonna send them down to me, and I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with them, but he said we could have them on board anchors, I guess. I have no idea.
And Jesse's been banging his head over this thing for quite some time. He did everything he could to
Yeah.
do what he thought it might be, but it was well beyond his scope of abilities. And it's just very important that this piece of apparatus get back up and running.
Okay.
Could a good machine shop build those shafts and gears? Somebody like a running machine? They're building stuff for spaceships.
Yeah, but my thing, and you probably know, Mr. Levy, is that when you start having people build stuff specifically, you end up, it's like customizing stuff. You start paying more money than you can buy it for. I mean, the parts are available to repair what we have. It's just you can't buy a whole new one together, the casing and stuff. So I suppose it could be done, but I would have thought that, if it was repairable and stuff, he seems to be pretty honest. I don't think he's ripping us off. So if anything, he's probably going to take a loss. No, I understand, but and then you're looking at the time involved too. I mean, we've already been down for over a week, so I'm not sure there'd be any cost savings to take it.
Yeah, I think by the time they got geared up, they get all the tooling, the machining done, I think it will cost more that way.
Well, then it's the housing too, that you gotta make a whole new housing, and, I mean, if it's just a shaft or something.
I do know there is some of the gears. I mean, it was amazing, these gears that he put in, as fine-tuned as they are, I think, at the cost of them. I mean, one of the gears, I think he said was like $2,500. They're actually going to reuse that one because it's enough so it's got a little bit of burrs on it, and they're going to just take a fine file, and one of these guys is going to hand file it down because they are precision. And he did give us a couple of little hints about, in the future. I mean, it's got nothing to do with rocks or anything. That's just, he says it's very common, but there was a couple of them that maybe the truck got sat at a fire or something and just sat there and the water wasn't circulating. And that sometimes will score the shaft, but that doesn't put the big gouges in it. That just puts the big black mark on it. There was a couple of remedial training, as we call it, but that's...
Yeah, the shaft heats up, it's not getting cool.
Right, absolutely, and that's the idea behind the dripping, and the back
Heats up.
And then the rock gets in there, now it's hot, so it makes more damage. So there's other things, that we need to consider on our side.
Right. But the erosions and stuff, we can't. That's got nothing to do with pump operations.
Yeah,
That's just,
it's been running for 22 years, so it's had some bad spells, so.
I think the downside was if we'd have waited, I think we'd have just lost the whole thing, and this would need to be a conversation that would be saying, there'd be options, buy new or retrofit. There would be no, can we do it for less than 20? Yes, we can, or we're going to talk. I mean, it's not cheap. Like compared to a $350,000 new truck, it's cheap.
We got lucky that we seen when we did, because had we run much longer, we would have lost the pump completely, so. Yeah, it's a lot of money, but I think by catching it, we saved ourselves a lot of money, so.
Oh, I think, yep, go ahead.
So you folks are saying that the pump will be ready when?
He said he had it almost back together today, but they still got to test it. They got to field test it and rate it. And then obviously if they can't get to the 1250 under the RPMs that's required by the manufacturer, then they'll have to call, and then they'll have to say, we're going to go for 1,000, and if they do that, then I can come back and say, okay, let's do that. And then basically I have to I'll have to let Todd by email or let you guys know, as long as the town fathers and myself are aware that we've downrated this pump, then everything it's fine.
So Todd, from a financial perspective, I mean, right now, is there money to pay, because I mean, that's gonna have to get paid for, right?
Right, absolutely, yeah, there is, as of, well, this is the end of May, there was $18,000 left in the fire department expenses account. So the entirety of that money won't be in there, but we get a 30-day to pay, and there is money in the fire department capital reserve to cover the shortage in the expenses line. So the money is there, and we won't have to go anything for it.
I think if, technically you should get 30 days, the bill wouldn't have to be paid until after the close, so you'll know exactly what there is left. So.
And like I said, hopefully by the next meeting we'll know, so I can come in for an authorization on what I need out of that capital reserve.
Okay.
Fun with apparatus, folks.
Do something, man.
Well, and I don't want it to leave it out to the board that this was done because of lack of maintenance over the years and stuff like that. This is just one of those things that it's because of the nature of the business we're in and the type of department and where we get our water from. It's just one of those things. And while he said, and I think the way he put it was, Chief, if there wasn't dry hydrants all through Maine, I wouldn't have a job. So,
Yeah, I'm sure he said that to you.
yeah, that's exactly what he said. So he comes from a very small town, so he knows.
I can imagine the garbage that goes through those.
Oh, it's not even, I will, as an aside, say that I worked in the city before that had hydrants, and the fire chief's pet peeve there was the pieces of metal and the rust and the things that he got out of the hydrants when they cleaned those strainers after they call. I mean, you just wouldn't believe the pieces of cast iron that fall out of those pipes and those hydrants as they're pumping through those. So one way or the other, you're always sucking some nasty stuff through those pumps, and they do take quite a beating.
We just replaced 2 seawater pumps on my boat.
That's right.
I see what the fine sand does, so.
Yeah, doesn't take much. Thank you,
Okay.
Chief.
Good, that takes care of it.
Deputy Chief.
All right. Inform the selectmen of FY 13-14 RSU 21 appropriation.
Okay, so for the fiscal year 2013, 2014, the municipal appropriation for education for RSU 21 will be $4,071,486. This current year, the appropriation was $4,109,823. So we've saved $38,337 this fiscal year due to cost sharing.
What was it, 4,071,000 what?
$4,071,486.
Okay.
And I thought you'd just like to hear a little shiny news there. This is the first time in my years of municipal management that the education appropriation has decreased. So, there's a first for everything.
Yeah, I'm sure that's all due to the,
That is, well,
It's all
yeah,
cost sharing.
that is all cost sharing because the other 2 communities increased a fair amount, so we did okay on this deal. Right, Jack?
That's annual.
Right. Until, well, for the education appropriation, yes, it is.
However long it
2017 or something like that. So, until the next revision.
okay, the next one, inform the selectmen of error in town report book in regards to 12-13 approved budget.
Yeah, I banged my head on this for quite some time. Didn't recall, if you read the town report book, it showed a $76,000 increase in expenditures. And I knew we didn't do a $76,000 increase in expenditures, so my daughter had pneumonia, so I've been playing back and forth, dad one day, mom stays home the next, and I just couldn't get my head around where that $76,000 came from. Wrote the Arrow article, still didn't believe what I was writing, but the numbers didn't lie. Well, what happens is when I do the spreadsheet for the annual report, the website improvements, EDC branding study, fire chief part-time, those were all accounts that weren't funded this year, that were funded last year. The fire chief was rolled into the fire department. And so when we eliminated those lines, it took out the values that were budgeted for last year. And so it dropped us down by $63,000. So the numbers that are in the town report book are incorrect. I'm going to hand out a copy of this expenditure summary at town meeting to explain to the folks at town meeting exactly what happened. But there was a $15,000 increase in the municipal side, coupled with the $38,000 decrease in education and the roughly $30,000 increase in the county budget. We're going to just about break even without the increase in value. So we will be looking at a $14.50 mill rate again this coming year, if not lower, depending on what the appraiser comes in with values. So I just wanted everybody to...
What about what they're doing in Augusta?
What's going on in Augusta, we'll be able to handle all of that.
We're gonna take a hit.
We're going to take a hit, Tom, but what I'm going to recommend that the selectmen do is where we're able to keep the mill rate the same, I'm gonna propose that we fund the overlay as high as possible. That will give us a little additional revenue to be able to make up for the $70,000 shortfall we're gonna have this year. Year to date, this year, fiscal year 2012-13, we're about $120,000 over on revenue. So I think we're gonna make up for it on excise taxes and in other spots, so I don't believe we're gonna have to do any cutting in the expenditures. We'll be able to make up for that difference. But it was, it's perfect timing that information comes out when it does. But Arundel, they're not going to touch the homestead, but we're going to lose approximately, I believe it was $72,000 or $77,000 in revenue sharing. But we will be able to make up for that in the overlay and additional revenue. Hopefully we'll continue on this same path. This year we're better than 20,000 over on ambulance revenue. Recreation department this year is about 40,000 above in revenue, and excise taxes we were 20,000 above projections by May 31st. So I'm hoping that will continue so that we can temper that along. Any questions on that? And I apologize for that. It finally dawned on me when I was looking at, I had to pull out last year's commitments books. Asked Simone Monday, was it Friday? I was losing my mind. What's going on here? And it finally dawned on me that when I eliminated those lines that we didn't fund this current year, it took them out of last year's. That's another mistake that won't happen again.
Okay.
And as I said, I'll hand these out at town meeting to all the residents.
This is the one that we have here, that 2014 expenditure summary?
This is the correct one, yes.
Okay. All right, so we'll need that for Wednesday night. Okay. Update the selectmen on the MLJ Facilities Committee meeting held June 6th.
I'm going to hand this around if you'd like. This is grab scheme 5. I mean scheme 3.
I have scheme 3.
You do? Okay. The facilities committee met last week, and they are proposing what's known as scheme 3. That is to keep the A and B section of the school intact, put an addition on the far end where the rec department's office is currently, with 4 additional rooms at that end, and then continue on straight, and I'm in the wrong part of the building, but with the old section of the building, continue on straight along the Limerick Road with a slight jog going towards that clump of trees over by the entrance. I'll show you. This is the site plan here. You can all see this. This is
Go to the first page and show them where the gray shows the existing building.
So this is where we are now. We're sitting in the library. This is the existing building that will be demolished. This is the addition that will be put on over at the end of where the rec room currently is, where the parking is on the far end of the building. And then this will all be added. Gymnasium, there'll be a stage in here. There'll be multi-purpose room for the town to use. It'll be wired for microphones, it'll be wired for cameras, it'll be wired for everything we may need. This whole section of the building can be cordoned off so that when the community's using it on the weekends, they don't have to worry about anybody accessing the old school. If this does make it forward, because of the scope of the work, they will be required to sprinkle and bring up to code the existing building that's going to stay. This is the proposal that's being forwarded to the full board. There will be an additional meeting on the 21st to go over what that's going to look like on the property so people can get an idea of where that's going to be. But they'll continue to use the same entrance. There may or may not be some parking here.
Go to the last page.
It's 3A, correct?
Yeah.
And so this is what we're looking at. The existing school, the addition, possibly parking. There was a discussion of eliminating this parking, but people may not use that. The 116 spots, there'll be a bus turnout. It'll have room for all 6 buses to stack up. It'll be double lanes so that people, if school isn't in session, people would be able to use that, drop off, whatever reason, and the majority of the traffic will circulate around the back of the building. This is the playground, they didn't want to move the playground. The rec department will be utilizing the modular units that is here. That's going to be retained for rec department solely. They need to put a restroom in there at the town's expense, because at this time there's no restroom in there. There'll be a grassy area here for the kids to play on, basketball courts. And this is what we believe will be forwarded to the full board at some point in time. Scope of the work here, they're hoping to keep in the same ballpark as consolidated schools, so we may be looking at above a $9.8 million renovation for MLD. I can hand this around and you can ask any questions. Jack is actually on the committee. I sat in.
A couple of things that they're going to look at. We brought up the parking area, and they were going to go back and look to see if they could maybe add a couple more parking spaces either over here or maybe on the back side over here. With the elimination of this, we just kind of wanted to make sure there was enough parking, so they're going to look at maybe adding some more parking over in this spot here.
They're also talking about widening that entrance so you can have true two-way traffic because of the fact that there will be no way out the backside.
So we're pushing closer to the pipe.
Closer to the bike.
Isn't that the same one staying grounded as it's sitting on now?
No, because of the angle they're going at.
Because of this.
Run parallel to Limerick Road.
They showed, because the topography, the ground kind of goes, it's like right in here. So they're saying that the ledge, as the existing building, where this is, there's ledge, and that ledge gets higher and higher and higher as they come closer towards the road. So they're thinking that all of this here, they'll have to do some pits, but they're thinking that most of this will be on a much more stable ground.
And then we'll do test borings, and they will, if they find quite a bit of clay, as is the case everywhere else, they would drive pilings to set the foundations on pilings so that there's no issues in the future of any buildings sinking.
Did you get in touch with the turnpike?
Did I get in touch with the turnpike? Steve Tart did not get back to me, so I did.
These guys might know.
Does anybody recall, did the turnpike ever give the piece of property to the town as they were supposed to when the...
I thought we were supposed to do a property swap with the turnpike.
And I don't think that ever happened.
In here, Tom,
Go to page 3 and it will show it.
see how this jogs over? This sliver of land is said to be owned by the Maine Turnpike Authority. But Velma had recalled that possibly that land had been gifted back to the town. I wasn't able to find anything. Like I said, I called Steve Tart, he's an engineer that I know at DOT. I haven't heard back from him yet whether or not they had given that had actually taken place.
I
What were they
thought,
gonna do that for?
I thought we did a swap. When they would,
What were we swapping for?
The other side of the...
yeah, when they were widening the turnpike, they wanted a piece to widen the turnpike. And I thought that they swapped us that piece for this piece.
Yeah, I have a vague recollection of that.
Yes.
Wasn't it something like on the other side of the road, they were using that, and then they were gonna give it back to the town, and they decided not to. They put the big berms in there, and the turnpike kept it. I think that was
later.
That was later,
later.
yeah.
But I do have a call into one of the engineers I know at the turnpike to see if he can put me in contact.
Because
with somebody
it just
that
seems so
knows.
strange when they told us that at the meeting, that the turnpike owned the strip out here in the front of the building between the school and the road.
Yeah, I remember that.
One of the things that does, there's a slight issue with front setback on that, so they might have to come back with a variance, but there's a front setback is supposed to be 75 feet, and there's a small issue with that.
Because of that piece of property.
But it may not be an issue because it's 75 feet from the right-of-way, and so if you take through the neighbors, as it sits, this is 75 feet from the right-of-way, but not from their property line. And so that's what they meet, the 25-foot setback, that's what this is here, this dotted line. They meet their 25-foot setback, but they were questioning whether or not we would consider that 75 feet from the right-of-way because there's a different property owner between the right-of-way and the school property.
Did you look through the deed files that we have in
I-
that binder?
I didn't look through the big deed file.
That one might be in here. I have to,
Because that just struck
because
me
we have
back.
because I know we had gotten all the deeds together and that binder
Okay.
might be
I'll look through
where
that.
they're located.
That shift to the front Is there additional classroom space as part of that? What exactly is that? What's being eliminated, what's going to be?
There's 7,000 additional square feet, I believe.
So they're adding classrooms here, there are 2 more classrooms here, the library, there's a computer room, a Spanish room. I forget what this is, SSGT?
Gifted and talented.
Gifted and talented, and then a music room and an art room.
Yeah.
So they will be gaining classroom space. The conversation we did have a conversation about capacity, and Dan was gonna get back to us. He had thought off the top of his head it was 250 to 275. We informed them of the Hissong subdivision, of, you know, a lot of the large parcels of land where that may actually increase, and they'll take that into consideration for a possible expansion or to address it. There were a few, right now what they do is they have music and Spanish are rotated between schools right now, so they could gain 1 or 2 additional classrooms in the future, should we gain that many students by scheduling through different schools again. But they are.
And the other thing we talked about is if we eliminate this parking over here, that would actually give room if we wanted to put another 2 more classrooms or something at the very end down that way. That would give an opportunity to do that.
But these classrooms are being added, classrooms that we use full-time or part-time?
Full-time.
Full-time?
Yes.
The other plans that were done the way on earlier were the fact that it was part-time classrooms.
And that's my recollection, correct, Jack?
Yeah.
It was full-time classroom.
Conditional upon sufficient population.
Well, I guess that's my question.
Yeah.
If we blossom to 300 for some reason, they would have to possibly schedule between other schools to see where they're going to put these programs. But Dan didn't have an exact, he had said somewhere between 250 and 275 students, but he was going to do an analysis to let us know exactly what the capacity of that school as proposed is.
Okay. And what's the population of this school now compared to last year? Pretty much the same?
242, I think. Kevin said.
230.
Going down there?
It's in the town report, but if you look in the page
Oh,
for
okay.
the
I
teachers.
think Kevin said at the meeting, Dr. Crowley said at the meeting that the population right now is 242. And historically, it's been between 225 and 260 something is what they were talking about. So they plan to accommodate, and we explained to them that there's a subdivision with 45 unbuilt houses on the old Alfred Road, and possibilities for some expansion. So they're going to take that into consideration and hopefully either increase some spaces here and there or plan for expansion along that far end toward you, Dana.
What size is the gym going to be?
Full size.
Size.
Full size?
Full
size.
Yes.
Danny,
Bleachers for
grab that plan.
175.
Oh, gee.
I think 150 or
175.
They got a flood out of planning building.
Hang my sneakers yet.
You won't be able to keep up anymore, huh?
And it's also going to be the cafeteria. They are not building a
Yes.
separate cafeteria. The gym, as has always been, will be the cafeteria.
Because
With a good floor this time.
it would be, yes.
Yes.
What they had said is, if you take into consideration the gym time and the cafeteria time, the cafeteria is used 27% of the time. So if they dedicated a cafeteria, that room wouldn't be used for 63% of the day. So what they, in taking into consideration a mixed-use cafeteria, they would use that room 82% of the time during the year.
What about the boilers? That was an issue way back when, because at one time, we were told that the boilers were on their last leg, we're going to replace them. Yet, they had, the RSU had somebody look at the boilers, that if you cleaned them and took care of them, you get another 10 to 20 years out of them.
I was not part of that conversation.
There is a boiler room right here.
Do we know if we're going to replace them? Have we heard?
I don't recall. I think the intent is to replace.
He did state there would be new boilers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He did say that.
Yeah, when
They're
Mark was-
basically bringing everything up to code and improving particularly safety requirements.
And all of the infrastructure overhead,
Yeah.
it's going to be brought up to code as well?
They would sprinkle the entirety of that section.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're going to do an analysis on the U values of the windows, single glaze, double glaze. They're going to go right through and you know, make sure that they're not just adding on to something that's inefficient.
And the nice thing about this plan is that you don't have to shut the school down.
Yeah.
You know, they can keep this open while they do the construction and do all of that. You don't have to temporarily, you know, house some kids, so.
This is what I like. Can you imagine having some nice designated parking areas?
So there'll be another meeting on the 21st. Dan Cecil is the architect. He'll be refining. We'll be meeting with codes and planning next week to see if that setback is going to be an issue and check into any other codes and ordinances that need to be adhered to in order to meet the standards here in Arundel.
That meeting will be here.
Yes.
The next meeting will be here, but there'll be a meeting prior to that, was my understanding, at Town Hall to meet with codes and planning.
Oh, yes, yes.
But yes, the other meeting will be here.
The main meeting, instead of the yes, will
Yeah.
be here.
Absolutely.
Okay. F, Selectmen appoint Jamie Lowry to the planning board to fill the unexpired term of Gregory Copeland.
I apologize for not having a volunteer application. Jamie was out of town at his nephew's graduation. He was out of state, and so he'll have the application to me, but I have spoken with him several times. I believe he's very qualified, and I think he'll do a very good job on the board. And thank you to Dan DuBois for twisting his arm and getting him to actually agree to doing that.
So we don't have the form yet to officially to sign it?
I don't have his application. I don't have an appointment form. If you would appoint him, pending the form, we can get him to at least start attending meetings. I don't have that for you at the next meeting.
Okay, motion?
The, you know, the bylaws of the planning board doesn't, it says 5 to 7.
Yes.
So it doesn't have to be replaced right away.
If he's ready, then
I think he's ready.
he's ready. All right.
You might be hearing it now, before Leah changes his mind.
Do we have a motion to appoint him?
I'll make it.
Yeah.
I'll let it.
Okay. Motion been made and seconded to appoint Jamie Lowry to the planning board to fill the unexpired term. What is Greg's unexpired term?
He'll go to 2014.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Putting to work. Inform the selectmen of MEMA payment of $44.7166 for Winter Storm Nemo disaster. Is this more money we're getting?
Yes, the Emergency Management Agency beat the Federal Emergency Management Agency in paying their debt for the Winter Storm Nemo. So we did receive a check of $44.7166 from Maine Emergency Management, and we are awaiting the remainder, $23,000 from FEMA. So, yeah, we're getting, it's not in addition, it's what is expected.
It's that we received it.
We received it, yeah, and I just wanted you to be aware of that. I didn't expect to see it that quickly.
Oh, especially if it came from the state. And that goes into that emergency fund that.
Yes, the Natural Disaster Reserve account.
All right. And treasurer's report.
You know, to be honest with you, I think we're in really good shape. We've got, today's the 10th, so we've got 18 days till the close of the year. There are no accounts that are in danger of being ridiculously overspent. We've addressed the issues of Public Works. We've addressed tonight the issue at the fire department, and the remainder of the budget will come in below what was budgeted. And revenues are actually doing quite well. As I mentioned earlier, excise tax on automobiles, as of the end of May, so we still had an entire month, was $19,767 over what we projected. Sim and I have both noticed that from February till about May or June, the new vehicles were rolling in quite regularly, and that's usually a pretty good indicator of where the excise tax is going to be. There are shortfalls on, some interest and penalties, things like that, interest income on the general fund, but overall, we will come in over revenues and under expenditures. If there are any specific questions, I'll be more than happy to address those for you.
Yeah.
When you look in the book, there are taxes that are, some of them have been delinquent for a few years. Are we actively pursuing going after that stuff?
Yes, we are. There's one of them in particular that I'd like to begin addressing here again real soon. That has been a real burden for me. But we did clear up a lot of them at the beginning of last fiscal year, and so we do keep on.
Yeah, I did notice that the list shrunk over from years past, but.
Yeah, and we're continuously working on those delinquent accounts. We send letters and letting them know that it's mostly personal property taxes that we're really chasing after. Can't foreclose on personal property, so it's a difficult process, but the honest people pay, and the other folks, we take the small claims court, we usually end up prevailing unless there's a bankruptcy or some other situation like that. So we will continue to pursue those. If it's an amount less than $200, typically I ask the selectmen to write that off because we can't recoup our money for chasing that stuff. I hope to continue to keep that list shrinking.
Any other comments? Town manager requests to close the town hall on Friday, June 28th to perform fiscal year-end closing.
Typically, I only request to close at noon. This year's Rebecca's first year doing the year-end closing. We have a few scheduled vacations, and so I would request, if the selectmen will allow, we'll all be there working, but in order to be able to be sure that we get the year-end closing done and done right and in time, I would like to close town hall for the entire day on Friday, June 28th. We'll still be in there closing, doing reconciliations and cash-ups, but I think in order to take some of the stress off Rebecca and the folks that will be at town hall, I would appreciate that. If in the event that you don't agree with the whole day, we'll go with noon and hope for best.
We don't have any type of a curtain that we
We
can
do.
put in that door.
We have a sheet.
All right, because if you're in there working.
Yeah. And that's what we did last year,
Yeah.
is we thumbtack a sheet to the clerk's office,
Yeah.
and if people want to go upstairs and deal with Tad, or if they have something else to do, they can come in and do that, but we segregate ourselves from the public so that we can get that work done.
So the following week, are you closed on the 4th?
Yes, we are.
4th is on a Thursday, the following week.
That's correct.
Okay, we have a motion to approve that.
So moved to rescind.
In a second, Dan? Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
I'll go. Already says it in here.
You told me to do it.
Done, folks.
My second.
Did I hear a motion in a second?
Yes, you did. All in favor?
Thank you.
Okay.
Close them down if you said it.
Yeah.
Stay open.
Review and sign the AP and payroll warrants. We have a motion to approve and sign the warrants.
So moved. Second.
Yeah. You just choose the one you want. Okay, motion's been made and seconded, all in favor? That takes care of those. And selectmen review and comments for revision of proposed camper trailer occupancy ordinance.
I included it in your packet. Simone has made some comments just in regards to language, state statutory language on motorhomes, campers that will be changed. But do you have any major concerns, requests, changes that you can see that you'd like to be made? Any comments, anything you'd like to discuss about the temporary occupancy ordinance?
I do have a couple of comments. Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
I agree with Mr. Labby's comment at the last meeting of the necessity for this ordinance. I'm not sure we have a problem that we were addressing, other than trying to head off any issues that may arise, but
open for discussion.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Seems to me. People don't like regulation, but, you know, the financial institution said, don't regulate us, and look what that list.
Yeah.
Mortgage industry says, don't regulate, look at that list. Then we gotta start patching holes all the time. I know we may not have a problem, but this means we won't have a problem. Or at least you have somebody to address it if it does arise again.
Did you see
I don't know why
anything
we're foul.
in there, Tom, that you would change, or that you would address?
Like, I just had a chance to look at it this afternoon, so there was a few things. I've actually, who did this, Todd?
Tad.
Tad, I was gonna call Tad and just ask him some questions about what we're just getting at here. But overall, I didn't see any issues with it. I thought it exempted those things that should be exempt.
Time limits, did those work for you, Tom?
Well, time limits are okay. I didn't think if you're gonna have one of these family reunions, weddings, etc., I don't think you need to come to the Board of Selectmen to get approval for that. This code enforcement officer, it seems to me, can make that call. That's just my take. I don't want people coming to selectmen's meetings because they're gonna be ready.
Right.
Yeah, I just had an issue with a couple of things on registration. You know, if I got a camper and sitting in my yard, times are tough, and you know what, I'm not gonna go camping this year, I'm not gonna register it. And, you know, I get friends coming in from wherever, and I offer them to stay in the camper, I don't wanna have to register the darn thing because they're coming. So I think anything to do with registration should be stricken. You know, when we talk about recreational vehicle, maybe we ought to call it a registrable, it's not really not a word, but, you know, come up with some better word, huh? It is now. Us in Arundel, you know, that's my only concern is, you know,
I mentioned that to.
Yeah, and typically what.
Because I said, you know, a lot of times, like, I have a camper that I haven't used, you know, so it's gonna be almost 2 years before you register it again, and, I mean, you don't wanna be,
I don't.
you know, following up on all the registrations on all the park campers.
Yeah, I think, you know, where it says, where you have your definition of registration, a recreational vehicle, you know, in order to be considered as a recreational vehicle, not as a structure, the unit must remain with its tires on the ground and must be registered with a state division of motor vehicle. Either reword that or just strike it all together. And then on 3.4, where it says recreational vehicle licenses, you have maintain a current state vehicle registration and display valid motor, you know. I don't.
And typically that's addressed, if it's not registered and valued at greater than $10,000, then the assessor can tax it as personal property. And so I think that's where he kind of pulled some of that language in there, but we can revise that and make it, you know. The concern is that you're gonna have that recreational vehicle that's gonna be parked there for 35 years, and, you know, they'll invite their family 1 week a month, but we can look into, you know, seeing what we can change to make that a little bit more doable. I mean.
I have a question on a park model.
Yes.
I don't know what the underpinning is on those park models, so do they, it says here, I believe somewhere in there, that if it's a park model, you have to leave the wheels underneath?
Yeah.
I know with a lot of, if it's a mobile home type vehicle, a lot of times they will remove the wheels. The wheels are there, but they've removed them, and they'll set them on cement blocks or something like that.
That differentiates it between recreational mobile trailer and a mobile home. Mobile home, like you said, they take the wheels off, they put it on a foundation. If you have the park model set in your yard, you have the wheels come off, and you put a cinder blocks, you jack it up on something, it's no longer a recreational vehicle, it's no longer a trailer, it's an actual home.
So this is
So
only
then we
regards
make it a
that vehicle
structure.
if it's in your yard,
That's
not
correct.
in a park.
That's correct.
We already have an ordinance that people can't understand. I don't know anybody that can understand it. I certainly can. And the planning board's been trying their best to reduce it, and we're adding 4 more pages to it for one recreational vehicle.
This will actually be our ordinance, right, not the planning board.
That's correct. This would be in the land use ordinance.
This would be a separate selectmen's ordinance.
So we still think we need to add a 4-page ordinance for one problem that we've had in, I don't know how many years.
We won't know until we have a vote.
Has the state come down and checked out anything on the disposal?
I know Jim's been out there. I don't know if the state's been down here to do anything with him. I haven't seen Jim this week yet, just briefly, so I'm not sure if Brent has been down and doing anything
Oh, Donna, sorry.
I guess 2 questions. One, because I haven't seen the language, so I'm kind of putting pieces together here. Is this enforceable?
or not. Yes,
Is it realistically enforceable?
yes. It's going to be subjective no matter how well we write it, and I don't like to be the naysayer, but the morning you get to court, somebody can move this, you can no longer be there, and everything goes, goes away. How do you determine? We've got the sheriff who's able to determine whether or not they're occupying it. Are we going to put somebody out there 24/7 to monitor this? No. It's more going to be on a written complaint basis. When we have a written complaint, once you have a written complaint by neighbors living in their camper, then Jim can go with that written complaint and the ordinance and say, talk to your lawyer, figure out if this is really what you're doing. If it is, you guys are going to need to address it in some manner. If not, come back to us and tell us why this isn't what you're doing. But there's fines associated with it. Usually that $150 to $2,500 a day fine will make people think twice as to whether or not they're really living in that camper. So, but it's as subjective as any other ordinance at this time. I mean, there's always going to be some room to say, no, we're not living there, we're just there watching the game and we sleep in the house. So, like any other ordinance, like Jim says, this gives him something to go to them and say, we believe you're living in your camper, you now need to prove otherwise. Puts the ball in their court.
See, the problem I have with that, they're guilty till proven innocent. They have to prove themselves innocent.
Pretty much.
No, we have the burden to prove it at the outset.
Well, if you have a complaint, you're gonna file a paperwork.
Right, but you've got to prove that, that's not enough. We got the burden going forward. We're going to convince the judge that in fact this is happening. And then they can come forward, and if they want to make up excuses like just being described, then it's up to somebody in the role to decide who to believe.
It's just not a complaint from somebody, from a neighbor that they don't get along with. We cast a whole series of,
I think it's
then we cascade into.
I don't think a code enforcement officer is just going to take a complaint and file it a complaint.
No, he'll take a complaint, he'll investigate it.
Investigate first.
And then they'll move forward if he determines, based on that complaint, if he can make a determination that they're violating something in this ordinance. And once you're violating any clause in this ordinance, then you're in violation of the ordinance, and that allows us to move forward with it.
And my second question,
Just a second, Donna.
my second question is, since this is a selectmen's ordinance, is the implementation of this ordinance dependent only upon these 5 votes, or does it still have to go to the townspeople for approval?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
There'd be a public hearing, special
Okay.
town meeting.
Run across one of those before.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is this really a problem? What I mean, is this just one instance, or is it all over town, or what? Are we making a big deal of this?
Right now, it's one continuing instance that has continued for months and months and months and months and months. And we don't have any way to address it.
So is it really a big problem then?
It is for the person living there,
No, not for him, maybe his neighbors, but
yeah. All right, it is for the neighbors. very much a problem.
Again, you know, if somebody's gonna live in a camper all year long, you know, make it a permanent structure and let's collect taxes on it. I mean, we're collecting taxes on everything else that everybody's living in, so.
And I imagine right now, it not only is probably not even registered, but we aren't collecting any taxes for personal property either. It's just sitting there. Where they're getting their water is anybody's guess, and where they're dumping their sewerage is right now anybody's guess, because there's no sewerage in the camper, no septic in the camper.
You know, and from my perspective, I just don't think because it's not a big problem, that the board doesn't address it. Okay? I don't think that's the way you have to look at it. You know, wait till it snowballs into a huge problem and then address it. I think that's going at it from the wrong end. We know about an issue now, we don't have a way to handle it. All we're doing right now is addressing the issue. How do we handle it if it becomes a big problem?
And ultimately, it'll be left up to the people that show up at the vote to see whether or not we enact one.
Jim and the Department of Health and Augusta can handle the waste problems. And as far as I'm concerned, beyond that, that isn't really a problem. How many people are gonna wanna live in a camper trailer for extended periods of time?
Don't know. It was the same way when we instituted the mass gathering ordinance. You know, we had one that was a mess, so we instituted that ordinance to handle anything else. I mean, we don't even use it. Sometimes we don't even use it once a year, but it's there.
You know, we put this together, you know, go to the voters and the voters will decide. And if the voters say yes, so be it. If the voters say no, we've done our due diligence and.
And in the meantime, Jim and the state, I would hope, are diligently checking for that problem to see if that.
I have a question for you. How enforceable is this, to tie in with Donna's, you know, like when you make an ordinance change, if somebody is doing something and it makes them illegal, they're kind of grandfathered. So at this point, if somebody's living in a camper and we throw an ordinance, wouldn't they come back and say, well, you didn't have an ordinance before and, you know,
No, because
It's
it's
a
a
zoning ordinance, yeah, in fact, you know, where you can build something, what you can build. But if it's personal property, like this is sitting in somebody's yard, you don't get grandfathered.
yeah, okay.
To me, this is a big safety issue. I mean, I can see that, you know, Simone's building a new house, so she's going to, while they're building the new house, and then they're getting the old house ready to move everything into the new house, so they're gonna be staying in the camper for a short time while they're in the process. I mean, and I've seen people live in a camper while they were building their new house, and have it hooked up to water and have it hooked up to septic and check with the town office and make sure everything was done legally and above board. I don't have a problem with someone doing it that way. Okay, so where do we go from here?
I'm gonna forward, last Tom to forward his comments to Tad, I'll forward the comments that I got this evening to Tad, and I'll come back with something that is a little bit more refined. And then the next fiscal year, we'll have to call a special town meeting and hold a public hearing and a special town meeting to decide whether or not people of Arundel want a temporary occupancy ordinance.
Okay.
And as an aside, we leave it hooked up at my house and we call it the doghouse.
Yeah. The operative words there being hooked up.
Yeah.
Any other business?
I don't believe so. I would like to thank Dana for spending his time. I've only been
Yes.
on board with
Which
you
one?
for 2 years, Dana, but I know you've been here a little longer than that. And I I personally would like to thank you for the opportunity to work with you. Wish you the best in your endeavors. I've got a list of volunteer applications that you'll need to fill out here, because we've got some boards and committees we're looking for you on, but I hope you enjoy your retirement from the board.
It's been an experience, to say the least.
And I thank you on behalf of the residents of Arundel.
Very well.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate your work.
I think the name,
You don't get that.
add to the rest of them.
You put those on the wall of shame, Dana.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So motion to adjourn.
Oh, right. Do we have a second? Second. All in favor? At 8:10.
Last
Hello, how are you? Lily?
Lila.
Oh, Lila.